So in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to augment a photograph and take what we see here and change it into a perspective section, in a way revealing some architectural elements that we don't currently see. And to do that, I just want to give you a quick overview. The tools we mostly use would be the pen tool to do that. We can also use the rectangle here, and then we use the second arrow, the selection arrow, A. So shortcuts here, we got V for the selection tool, A for the direct selection tool. That's going to allow us to transform the vertices of our pen tool. Pen tool is P. Within the pen tool, you can have, if you click and hold, there's drop downs, and we could add additional vertices if we need to. We might have to. Rectangle is M. And throughout the semester, we might look at some of the other tools within Illustrator. Down here, I just want to look at how Illustrator works. It's vector graphics, as we discussed. This is a raster graphic, just a JPEG I brought in. But if I created a rectangle here, currently it's being filled with white and has no stroke. So if I change this and say, well, fill with red, and I'll go and double click the stroke and say I want a blue stroke. Now if I turn that off, you can see there's a thin blue line around the rectangle. Go ahead and zoom in so you can see it. And if I click this, I can go to Window, let's see, Stroke, and I have some stroke commands here where I can say, okay, well, I actually want that stroke to be 8-point thickness. I can tell it to round ends and round corners. You can see what it does there. I won't need that. I can also specify that I'd want a dash. Right now that's a 12-point dash, and if I change that to a 2-point dash, we have something smaller. One trick to cover while we're talking about it is if I set my my line weight to 0, you know what, let's set my line weight to 1, sorry, and put round corners and put a dashed line on and set my dash to 0 and my gap to 5. You can see I can make a dotted line. So essentially what that's doing is for this line, maybe I'll make this 2, and I can increase my size, make that back to 4. Essentially what I'm doing is saying the thickness of the line is 2 points, but my dash is 0 points. So it's going to cap that dash with a round on this side and a round on that side, and I'm going to put a gap at 4. That's something if you wanted to project geometry or say something's in front of the cut plane, we'd use dash lines. Just an example while we're talking about it. Alright, so what do we need to do here? First, I selected this photograph because it doesn't really give me much information about the section, but it does give me these kind of perspective lines. I know that this is in 2-point perspective. I know that because the verticals are almost square. They're vertical. If they were tilted in or out, that would be a 3-point perspective, which is a little trickier to draw, but can be done. Also, that I can see, the kind of roof height. So I know that this edge carries over and then comes and hits this overhang. Then we can draw a section that comes down the face, down into the grass, up the curb. We don't know really what's on this side, but we can try to put a plane, a plane that cuts through this space. So to go ahead and jump into it, I'm going to create a new layer. So we currently have layer 1, and I'll just rename this photo. Create a new layer, and I'm going to lock my photo layer so I can't click it and do anything to it. And then I'm just going to get the pen tool here. And right now it remembered my settings so that I have a stroke and a fill, and I don't want that. I'm going to turn my fill off by clicking this little none, and then I'll set my stroke color just to black. You'll see I'm still at the settings I was using before. It's a 2-point stroke with a dashed line. I don't want that, so I'm turning off the dashed line. And now what I'll do is just start. I don't want to cut the section at this face, but I do want to cut it along that angle, so I'm going to move my section cut. Imagine that it's a little more forward just to start there. And what I imagine there, let's undo that. So if I carry this line back, I'll start my section back here. And so that's cutting into the space. And I'll try to follow that angle, but I can be pretty loose with it because I can edit all these vertices later. So that's going to come to the overhang, and then I'm holding shift to make sure that line is vertical. Then I'm going to copy basically a parallel angle back towards the wall. You can see it's a little off right there. So if I hit A, I can go ahead and edit this. It's going to snap to the verticals and horizontals. So let's see, maybe it's around there. If I come back to the pen, I don't think, it's not going to start up. So I'm going to click my anchor point. So with the pen tool, hitting P, I'm I'm going to click my anchor point here, and then basically now I'm starting from that point. We're building off of that line. So I'll hit shift and drag down. Then it's going to come across this sidewalk, down the face to the grass, across the grass, and I know it's actually going to come back to the corner and then up. Somewhere over here, we're going to come up, and I'm going to try to project this across to guess where we might cut down this face. And then really, I'm masking all this stuff out. Let's keep this thing without curves. If you click and drag, you get a bend in the line, and we don't really need that right now. So I'm going to come up here. Let's see, well, we can get it wrong initially. So there, I've closed off my shape, and I'm going to fill this shape with white, like so. So we're seeing that perspective cut. Also, I'm going to turn my stroke off so that we don't see the black line. And you can see that for the most part I'm good here, except that this foreground stuff didn't get cut out. So all I have to do is just move this point, and we'll keep it vertical here. Drag it up. This one here. So now it's kind of a question, do we want to cut through the sky, or do we want to show that sky as a part of the element of the composition? Oops. You can see what I just did. I clicked my mask here, and then I clicked one vertex, and all of the vertices were selected. See, all of them are highlighted red, and when I moved that, the whole thing moved. So I have to click if I click my object, I want to click the vertex I'm working on, just that one, and then I can pull this one across and think that, maybe we can move this one over. And this is actually, fairly sloppy, but when I move away, I can see that for the most part, the thing we're seeing here is that it appears that this is not cut in the right spot because the angle is off. So let's see if we can adjust that. Again, click this and move that down so we follow the right angle. And then I'm going to move this down so we follow that angle there. And now you can tell your eye will want to put this into perspective. So it's a pretty easy way to do it. And now I think when I look at that image, that section seems to be pretty accurate. I can still see a few little glitches where this is not vertical, which that wouldn't be the case. So I'll put that in line there. And I'm pretty happy with that. I can work with that. So I'm going to take this layer, we'll call it the mask, and I'm going to go ahead and lock it. And now the last thing you can see is that we just have a little glitch here, where because I'm cutting that section down at that face, I would really see some grass in that little triangle. So let's just fill that in here in Illustrator. We'll see if we can just make it look right. We'll say grass, and I'm going to draw a triangle here and see if I can just match that color. So I'm going to click my triangle and hit I for the eyedropper and click grass. And it's not going to match ever perfectly, but maybe it's good enough for now. If I really wanted to be picky, I could take this into Photoshop and clone some of the grass onto that object. But when you zoom out, you can't even tell. So I'm happy with that. The grass is added in. Let's go ahead and do our drawing. So I created a new layer for that. I like having everything on an independent layer so I can turn it off and edit it. So on my drawing layer, I'm going to come in with just a rectangle, and we're going to start over here and put the concrete sidewalk in. So I'll just drag this, and it remembers your last setting. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I want to fill that with gray, and I'm going to give this one actually a stroke. So I'm going to say 1 point, and it's in black, which is fine. And then using the direct selection tool, the keystroke is A, I'm going to line up these vertices with my section cut. So this one will come over here, and now we have to move the other vertices so that we're working with that perspective. And sometimes it's helpful to move them completely out of the way. I'm trying to get this one directly underneath so that these are vertical. So move it out of the way and then get in here. There we go. And now if I hold shift, I can move it up and down or left and right, but it won't go out at weird angles. It will actually go at a 45-degree angle too, but So that would be, the first piece of sidewalk. And what I'm going to do is project that further, and we're going to draft in what might be the space behind. So I can select both vertices by dragging a window, and you can see those are selected, these two are not. So now I'll just drag that along the same angle back here. And then with this one, we're going to taper it into the distance so that it's thinner at the back. That's part of two-point perspective. Now I can take that and I can easily copy it over to my other sidewalk. So I'm just going to hit Alt, and by hitting Alt, I can make a copy of it. You could also Control-C, Control-V, copy-paste. And now I'll move this into position over here, and we'll say, okay, give me both of those. We're going to snap up to my vertex there. Now I'll take the bottom vertex and move it there. And you can see that these two endpoints just need to be pulled up. And really this one would be down a little bigger because this would get bigger in perspective. I've gone off the page right now, and that's fine. We'll just crop that out when we make the final image. Next thing to do is to go ahead and put in some walls. So we know that these appear to me to be some type of crypt. The proportion, it could be just cladding, but I'm going to imagine as a designer that really that's a thick stone face. So I'll put in a wall here, drag that down. And same thing here, we'll just put that along our perspective line. Let's put in the roof now. So again, I'm going to hit Alt and drag up my sidewalk. Get these things aligned. You can actually use the arrow tools on your keyboard to just nudge these things a little bit. Sometimes it's helpful. There we go. And on this end, grab these ones and drop them down so that we fall along that edge. So with that, then I can take this wall and move it back in space and imagine that maybe this area inside is where bodies are interned. Drop those vertices down, drop that vertex down, drop that vertex down. And then I want to put a back wall to the space. So wall all the way back. Now, if I had the floor plan or the actual section of this building, I would know a lot more about it. So right now, I'm simply guessing, trying to make my best guess at what this space is. And more important than that, I'm trying to explain through my drawing kind of the what I feel is the architectural idea behind this building. So what I'm implying here is that there's a kind of a gathering space for the living, and then within here there is a space for the dead, and then outside we have a kind of space for nature. Just to finish this off, I'm going to grab this wall and bring it over. You can see how much smaller this wall is comparatively because of perspective. So let's just get this thing lined up. I'm going to take the two right vertices and snap them into place here. Take the two top vertices and drag them up. Take my bottom vertex, bottom left, make it aligned, and then I can actually use this sidewalk and hit Alt and copy it up. Drag these two up so that we're along that edge, and then with this one I'm just going to drop that vertex again. So fairly quickly we have a pretty good perspective section. I'm going to come in and imagine that if we transformed this sidewalk, let's see if I can grab that and not that. I hit Shift to deselect the lines of my back wall there. So this is where it gets a little tricky and why it's helpful to have these lines that help us determine the perspective. If I wanted to, I could come in, let's see, I just want to make this a pretty thin little ledge there. Move it down. Move this one up. Move that one up. And you can see that we can now tell that these are not in perspective. So let's see, I'm just going to say this one here, I want to deal with that vertex and this vertex, and move them down to almost horizontal. This vertex and that vertex would be below. It's better, but they're still off. So the way to fix this, I'm going to create a new layer and call it Guides. I'm going to lock my drawing layer for now. And I'm just going to draw a line using the line tool along this joint. I was way off there, so I'm going to try it again. From here, I'm just going to drag off into space, and you can see it's snapping to I think that's the midpoint of the image. We'll use that. And then here, same thing. I can go much further than I need and snap it there. And what you can see is where those lines cross, that's the vanishing point. And so now, if I went back to my drawing layer here, I could draw from that vanishing point, and let's do the easy one first, back to this corner. And then again, I'm going to say, give me a pen tool, and we'll go from this corner to the vanishing point there. So with those in place, I can click these lines. It's actually one line they joined up. And I'm going to use the scissor command, which the shortcut is C. And I'm just going to cut it where it hits this wall there. And I'm going to cut it again down here where it clips the wall. There we go. And now if I click the lines on this side, I can just delete them. So now I have those interior lines where I have the floor meeting the wall and the wall meeting the ceiling. Similarly, I could go ahead and do that with these elements, which will help me figure out where they fall in perspective, because if we look, they're still a little off. It looks like this one here just needs to be brought down. And I think this one also, let's see. That's definitely better. So with those in place, I'm going to click from here to my intersection point, and again from here to my intersection point, and then again for where this hits the roof, intersection point. You can see one thing that happened is that this, let's actually undo that. Because I drew an additional face to this, it actually became it transformed the boundary of that rectangle. So I'm just going to go this way and see if I tell it not to be filled. So my fill, turn that off. There we go. That's just the line. And again from here to my vanishing point. And then we have to do the bottom one from here to the vanishing point. All right, so now we have a series of projected lines that we want to cut all of them here. So I'm going to turn off my guides and use the scissor tool with C and cut each of these lines where they intersect the wall. And get rid of that one and that one. There we go. It's starting to come together. All right, the final thing is to put some shadow inside. So we're going to call this shadow, and I'm going to lock my drawing. What I'm going to do is to just draw a new triangle that is this top roof plane right here. So we're going to go from the corners here to there to there. And right now it currently doesn't have a fill. So if I went and said, okay, I want a fill color, I can make it gray. But I can also put in a gradient, which is this middle icon here. So I'm going to say a gradient, and you can see it goes from black to white. My gradient controls are over here. If I wanted to, I could change. This is actually just set up to be on a black and white scale, but if I wanted it to be color, I could change from green to white. For this, it's fine. All I need is black to white. And with any filled gradient, I can hit the G, which was my gradient tool, and I can move where the gradients start and stop. I can also, if I get the right side here, I can rotate the gradient. So we know that, really, let's do it this way. We'd have brightness closer to the cut, and it will fade to black further away. So we want to, let's see if we have to rotate. There we go. We're going to push. Now we have, we don't want that. We want this way. Fade it out. So it's a little, kind of tweak and check. There, I finally have it so that I have white near the section cut, and as we move away it fades to black, which I'm happy with. So also I'm going to set this opacity. I'm going to say, well, maybe it's only 50% opaque. And if I click the word opacity, I can change the way it stacks. And using multiply means that if there's a darker line or a figure behind it, it will let that shine through. So all right, we'll turn it to multiply, and then I'll take this triangle and I'm going to move it down to the floor. It's pretty close, but using the A, the direct selection command, I'll align these vertices. Move that one out of the way and snap it to here. And then I'll do this back wall. So I'll Alt-click it and drag it up again. And now you can see that our problem that we're going to have is that we only have 3 vertices and we need 4 for this kind of wall. So to do that, all I have to do is go to my pen tool and click and drag down to add anchor point. I'll click that edge. Then I will drag this over, drag that one down. And maybe this one, we need to change the gradient. So let's rotate the gradient this way. Up. So we're moving perpendicular basically to the section cut. We're going to change the gradient on this one as well. So that's really it. I'm trying to think if there's an easy way. No, I'm not going to do this one. You saw the example here, and I'm not going to spend the time in the tutorial just kind of fill that one out. Let's see, if I hit Control-0, I can zoom all the way out. And in 22 minutes here, we went from this photograph to a pretty good perspective section. So this starts to explain a little bit more about the building that we wouldn't understand from the photograph on its own. I hope that helps, and I look forward to seeing them. Thanks.